Yellow chair, yellow socks, yellow t-shirt, mini yellow silicone turd. I'm not obsessed. Hey guys, it's Jamie and welcome to a video all about my transliness and whether I still consider myself to be trans. So I am like 6.5 years or coming up to 6.5 years on testosterone. I had top surgery nearly 6 years ago. Oh my god, it'll be 6 years in August, that's crazy. And I'm also coming up to 6 months post-op first stage metoidioplasty. I have documented everything if you're interested, it's all on my channel. There's a lot of 6s in there, not keen on that, I'd rather if it was all 7s. And something that has come up and something I've been asked in the past, cool, is whether I still consider myself to be trans. Like, given that I'm quite far into the transition process and I'm very nearly done, like I would consider myself finished with the physical side of my transition after I have second stage metoidioplasty, which will hopefully be later this year, cross your fingers for me. Apart from obviously continuing to take testosterone. I don't think I said continuing properly, sorry, talking a bit fast, slow it down. Do I still consider myself trans? Am I still transgender? Do I still refer to myself as trans? I refer to myself as trans in videos and I use it in video titles that are transy stuff. So it's come up as to whether I still am trans. And I think this is a really interesting question and it's something that I've seen people answer in 2 different ways. Well, I think, you know, like 2 different ways being yes or no. So I have seen people who, once they've had lower surgery or they've completed every like physical stage of their transition that they want to, stop referring to themselves as trans, stop considering themselves as trans and completely like leave that part of their life behind and no longer identify with that. Then there's the other side where no matter what stage of transition or how complete or whatever anybody is, other people just always consider themselves to be trans and it's a permanent part of their identity. Now, I'm not here to start a debate or say one is wrong and one is right. I'm just here to talk about it in reference to myself. For me, personally, I will always consider myself as being trans. I will always see myself as trans and I will always identify in some way as being transgender. At birth, I was assigned a sex that is different to the gender identifier. So I was assigned female at birth, but I identify as male. And that will always be the case. So in my eyes, that would mean I'm always trans. As I've said, I've socially transitioned, taking testosterone, top surgery, lower surgery, all that lovely stuff. But to me, I am still trans and I always will be. But that doesn't mean that it defines me and it's certainly not the biggest thing about me, although I know that sometimes people think it is because I make these videos, but like in my everyday life, offline, it isn't that big a deal. It's a small part of my identity, but a part of it that I am proud of and that I feel like I've grown from, if that makes sense, or learnt things from, developed, I don't know, how do I phrase that? So in the beginning when I came out, and this is like 7 years ago now, so we've got a 7 in there now, I found the concept of myself being trans super hard to deal with and really difficult to accept. If I could have, I would have just run away from it and buried my head in the sand, but the discomfort I felt meant that I couldn't. I just felt I had to do something about it, but it terrified me and it took me a while to accept it about myself and accept what it meant for my life. And I really hated being trans. I really, really hated it in the beginning. I didn't want to say it, like I couldn't even say I am transgender. Like it wouldn't come out because I didn't like it. I knew it was right for me, but I didn't want it to be. But like now I fully embrace it, fully accept it about myself, and I can really see the positive impact it's had on my life and on me as a person in terms of like my personality and my openness and just my outlook on life. It really has shaped me as a person in so many positive ways, and I see no point in focusing or even entertaining the idea of like what ifs. Like, what if I wasn't trans? How would my life have been? How would my life have been? Sorry. You know, the answer is very different, but would that have been in a positive way or a negative way? I have no idea. All I know is that I like who I am today, I accept who I am, and I'm proud of who I am. Therefore, I am totally fine with being trans. The only things I find difficult sometimes with being trans, even now, is when I really think about kids or like kind of the discussion of kids comes up, and then just sometimes acceptance from certain people. I'm not talking about like trolls online, I'm talking about like people closer to home in like my offline life. But you know what? There could have been a multitude of other reasons why having kids might be slightly more difficult for me. Even if I wasn't trans, it might be something that was difficult. I just don't know. And I might have not been accepted by certain people for a different reason. So I see no point in like worrying too much about those things. Yes, I get upset sometimes, but it's okay. I get over it. It's gonna be fine. And plus, things like acceptance have come with time and gotten so much better. And like, I know that no matter how kids come about, I will be their dad. So yeah, like for the most part, I like who I am. I mean, I have my flaws. Who doesn't? But I do like the person I've grown up to be, and I don't mean that in a big-headed way. I just mean in terms of like how I found things as a teenager and how I felt as a kid and everything. I just never expected to be in the place I'm at today, and I'm very happy. I'm with somebody who loves me for me, somebody that I never want to be without in my life, and to be honest, I really don't think we ever would have met if I hadn't been trans. So like that just makes it worth it on its own. So that might have seemed like a complete tangent. It kind of turned more into the do I like being trans kind of question. But I think that's an important component of why I do feel really comfortable continuing to identify as trans, and why I'm okay with the fact that for me, in terms of how I identify myself, it will always be as trans. Not first and foremost, it's not the biggest thing. First and foremost, I'm a guy, and being trans doesn't stop that. I'm just a guy who happens to be trans, but it's still an element of who I am. And personally, I see that as a permanent element of who I am. Again though, if there are people out there who do not want to identify as trans, or stop identifying as such once they reach a certain point in their transitions or lives or whatever, I'm not judging at all. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Each to their own. This is just for me personally and how I feel about being trans and whether I still see myself as trans. I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed this different video. I know it's a trans video going up on a Sunday, but what I post on Wednesday will make sense. I had to like swap a couple ideas around for timings. Excuse like the messy hair and the inability to speak. It's gone past 7 o'clock and I've had dinner already, so like I'm starting to like shut down for bed. Yeah, I hope this made sense. Again, I don't want to start a debate about this. This is just for me personally. People can identify as whatever they're comfortable with, and I am not here to judge, and I'm not here to comment on that. I will respect what people identify as. But yeah, just for me, am I still trans? Yes. Will I always be trans? Yes, I will always be trans. Am I fine with that? Absolutely. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Much love. Bye.